notably, and a couple other outlets around my own site. And when I came into SPD, a large part of what I was doing was to sort of help revamp the communications, look at how they were interacting with the public, both online and news outlets, because of my background. And I just so happened to come in at a really interesting time in the state. And so, you know, one day we were looking at some polling numbers. I was looking at some polling numbers, and for 502, and I said, hey, you know, we should probably put together some messaging because this is looking like it's going to pass, and maybe have something to say about that. So, you know, I talked to one of our chiefs who was sort of the pot czar at the time. He'd been well versed in issues with dispensaries and medical stuff, and just basically went through run down the questions I had about if the law passed, what was going to change. That turned into Mayor What Now, which maybe some of you read. You know, that was sort of the first of one of our public education efforts to reach out to basically the community, the end user, and say, hey, here's the law, here's how we are or are not going to enforce things, and make sure that people knew what their police department was going to be doing. And largely, you know, we've been fairly hands-off on sort of the smaller scale marijuana stuff since the, you know, I think that late 90s, before my time. But yeah, that's been our focus. You know, after Mayor What Now, we had the Doritos at Hemp Fest. That was another great opportunity for us to really sort of go, hey, you know, we're in law enforcement, and this is the law, and you know, here's a reminder: don't drive, don't give it to kids, and that's been our main focus. You know, in the time I've been there, you know, things have changed a little bit more in the city. Obviously, this has grown. You guys are all here. So I'm both a former reporter and you know, not actually a cop. So I don't know how much I can offer you from a business and police perspective. But you know, my experience has been, you know, coming from somewhere like The Stranger, which, you know, runs a lot of ads for marijuana businesses and things like that. You know, I had some expectations about the law change and what I was going to see from officers. And I was surprised. You know, I'd assumed that a lot of cops I worked with were, you know, longtime drug warriors who were really bitter about the change in law. And what I actually saw was just sort of this, like, yeah, this is what we've been telling people. We don't really care about this. It wasn't a big issue. You know, I remember I was with some detectives going to arrest a robbery suspect at his mom's house, and this was before the law passed. And you know, they had him in handcuffs. They were putting him in the car and patting him down, and they found a bag of weed, and he was like, you know, said something like, "Oh yeah, that's I have a card for that." Like, oh, okay. So that, you know, that was sort of what I saw. You know, narcotics, the narcotics section. I've seen, you know, the few cases where they have gone into grow operation. You know, there's one detective in particular who does a lot of these cases, and I said, hey, how many plants did you seize? And he said, you know, just enough to get them back down to the limit, and we even let them pick which ones they kept. So that's sort of the philosophy right now at SPD. I think the narcotics dogs are you know, they've been sort of weaned off of that. And yeah, so it's been a really interesting change in culture to see, you know, from my background and also just, you know, broadly in law enforcement. We get calls all the time from, you know, Portland PD called us, Colorado PD, and you know, we try to just sort of push the same concept that, hey, you know, you have an adult audience, people want to know what the law is, and you're in a great position to help educate and inform rather than, you know, scold or anything like that. You know, I know that the business has evolved quite a bit in the last couple of years, and you guys are obviously going to be way more up on that than I am. But you know, one thing tonight I really want to hear from you guys is, at this point, you know, our focus has been sort of the buying audience, and but I don't know what information, you know, our department can, or the city can better provide to you guys. So. You know, if you guys want to move into the question and answer section pretty quickly, I'd love to hear from you about what info isn't out there, or something at the local level that we can be providing that you need.
Yeah. This is a random question. stand up, Maria, please?
You're being employed with the Seattle Police Department, but a former reporter from a stranger. Do you happen to smoke weed yourself?
You know, I have not at any point during my employ, because you know, they sent out a very clear letter saying, hey, this is under federal law, the city is, you know, part of that, and don't do it. And you know, I have a job in the police department, and I try to be respectful of that. So, yeah.
I have a question about, you know, as they, on July 24th when they passed the container law that affected a lot of people, you know, and changed a lot of things for end users and consumers. What you guys are doing to communicate that, what's your communication vehicle is for that, and how you're helping some of the retailers to help get that communication out.
So
are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so like it changed so that if you had any kind of open bag or a pipe in your car, you then had like just cause, like you would if you had an open beer or something like that. So it actually was a lot more lenient when it was illegal than it is now that it's legal, which is really part of the enforcement. So I was just curious how you're helping to communicate, because a lot of people that I know that are not in the industry don't even know that exists.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing to take back, because that's.
And then helping retailers to sort of carry on that communication.
Okay, yeah, I will look into that, because that's definitely something that's a sort of fine distinction that we want to make sure people know about. Yeah, sort of the emphasis on you know, DUIs was our big thing for a while, but that's a good piece to bring back and see if we can address.
I have a question to start us off. There's a lot of folks here who are retailers or who are selling their products through retail. To what extent is the Seattle Police Department in communication with those new business owners? There's a lot of regulations about promotion and marketing and what you can and can't sell and what you can and can't display and carding and all that other kind of stuff. Is there a public outreach that you're part of in the Public Affairs Department?
You know, I think our unit is a bit more broad than that. I believe the mayor's office does have David Mendoza, I think.
Yeah,
he's
been here at several of our events, yeah.
I know he's involved with a lot of the sort of the business side of things, and you know, that's something I can certainly talk to him about.
if I'm a retailer and I have a question about local enforcement, or if I'm a vendor and I have a question, how do I communicate with the SPD?
Well, if you have a question about enforcement, I mean, the majority of enforcement action we take, you know, whether it's on this or, you know, any crime that we respond to, it's typically based on a complaint. So, you know, like I mentioned, a couple of cases where we have, you know, detectives have gone to a grow business. That's been based on like complaints from the neighborhood about, I don't know the exact what the complaint was when it came in, but you know, our narcotics section has, I mean, certainly a place to contact if there's a specific enforcement issue. If it's more code, I would reach out to David. I think he's sort of the
Go right to the mayor.
Stuff. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious
or
about
city law.
Oh, sorry.
Also, sorry.
I'm just kind of curious about level of incidence as far as crimes against cannabis business owners. So have there been, you know, are there any statistics to show that there's been so many attempted break-ins, so many, you know, calls for executed break-ins?
Right. You know, anecdotally, that's something we have. Well, I mean, I know I've read the reports for those. I've written about those. That's one of my other big jobs. I run the SPD blog, the SPD blotter, and the Twitter feed. So I've seen a lot of those. I couldn't give you a number for certain, but that's definitely something detectives have investigated. I know there was one down in the south end that was pretty significant recently that you know, they're still following the trail on. But it kind of comes and goes. I've heard a lot of things about, you know, there have been juvenile suspects and things like that, but you know, I've seen detectives work with the businesses. Security seems to improve, and it doesn't happen again.
Are businesses treated any differently, whether they are a medical marijuana establishment or a 502 license?
No, I mean, we treat a victim of a crime like a victim of a crime. It's you know, if you get broken into and you're a business, then we're going to help you just like we'll, you know, help UFC or something like that.
This is just more of a general question. One of the reasons that people tend to support
SPD, you know, I mean, there was sort of the deprioritization years ago, and then, you know, where we're at now. So it hasn't been a significant draw on police resources before, at least in Seattle. I mean, outside of Seattle, it could be a different story. You know, my experience here locally is that it wasn't particularly high demand. I mean, I think most of our contacts now are open public use, people selling it on the street corner, and you know, when we spot a juvenile with it. Those are our main contacts for those, and they're pretty minimal in terms of numbers. In fact, the municipal court actually posts all the citation totals for the year online now. So we've been working with the city to make sure that that data is public, because that's we're about making that information available and transparent. So, but in terms of resources, you know, narcotics, I don't think was doing that many cases to begin with, and I mean they're doing even fewer now. But yeah, I don't think it was a big draw in the first place.
I was wondering if you could expand just a little bit on something you just mentioned. You mentioned street corners, people selling on street corners. But I'm sure that a lot of people in this room know of some gray or black market places where you can walk into what appears to be a retail outlet that is neither medical nor 502 regulated. Is the police department doing anything about them, and having plans to shut those locations down? Well,
if it's an issue regarding a business license, I know the city is working on some of that broader conversation there. But I mean, if it's a corner store that's selling a lot of pot out of the back of it, I mean that's a whole other thing. And I know that we have gotten complaints about things like that in the past, and I think I've addressed it, and some of that comes in the form of detectives, contacting them and going, hey, what's going on, and it stops or whatever. But certainly something you could, if you want to chat after this, or just contact the unit itself and say, or just call 625-5011, say I'm a concerned neighbor, and just let us know. But the way it's addressed is, they're not going to send a SWAT team in, most likely.
To follow up on that question, let's maybe be a little bit more specific. There's an example, there's a place that is a shipping container. It's not a corner that claims to be a grocery store. It's a shipping container sitting in a parking lot. No windows, no signs, no anything else. People going in and out all day long, right? It is not 502, it is not a medical, it's not a licensing issue. It's clear what it is. SPD cars come in and out of that parking lot. It's the only thing in that parking lot all day long to know what's going on here. So I understand the deprioritization and the reasons for it, policy-wise, as well as lack of clarity of the laws of what to enforce and what not to enforce. I think that clarity is a lot better now. So I don't think that that's as much of an issue as it was before. You guys should kind of know what needs to be enforced and what's not, what's a licensing issue, and what's a violation of law. So in a situation like that, has there been a reprioritization now that there's more clarity, or will there be a reprioritization of closing down or addressing, arresting, enforcing things that are clear violations?
You're so suspicious. You should be a cop.
He's a lawyer, very clear.
So, is this in West Seattle by any chance?
White.
I kind of think we did something there recently.
Okay, maybe just more recently.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's closed, yeah, that's.
It was there for a long time.
The shipping container is closed.
It takes a long time to get over West Seattle. So yeah, that was based on neighborhood complaints. That was based on officers knowing their neighborhood and that sort of community policing and knowing, hey, so that may have been why they were in and out of that parking lot, is to try to be like, hey guys, we're right here, you can go now. But it was like a gas station or auto shop, something like that. Yeah, no, I think I wrote about that. So yeah, we definitely do. Now that I think about it, I think a lot of the places we actually end up going to are in West Seattle, so I don't know what. But yeah, I mean, that's something, through the regular channels, whether it's the community police teams at the precinct, a 911 call, 625-5011, calling narcotics, like we have all their info on our website.
Short of a neighborhood or neighbor complaint, is there going to be a reprioritization now that there's more of a clarity in the laws?
For our department?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's complaint based, so if it's something we know about, or if it's something officers come across, I mean, that's how we find out about these things a lot of time. It's either an officer hearing about it from somebody, or an officer coming across something, or someone reporting it, and then depending on what we know about it, if we have probable cause to go further with that, that's sort of how that turns into an investigation, and we end up in a shipping container. So, does that answer?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of along the same line of questioning, with the giant changes to medical marijuana that are started and are continuing to change until July 1st of next year, I'm wondering what's the SPU's relationship with the Liquor and Cannabis Board? Is there a liaison there, someone that, a quick line to address these kind of issues, these gray areas? Because so much of this enforcement is done by the LCB, but being the largest city in the state, I'm wondering what that relationship looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we work with Liquor Control. City Attorney's Office stays up on these issues. Like, this is something we try to stay abreast of, because there's obviously a lot of very new, very changing law, and it means a lot for us as a law enforcement agency. When it comes to, I know the medical issue, again, I think that's probably something that the mayor's office might be better equipped to address. But again, with medical stuff, in the event that officers do go into a place, find something that they believe is over the limit or whatever, they tend to contact narcotics, say, hey, and they screen it through them, and then the result of that has been, from what I understand, if it's in the bounds of the law, then they go, that's all left there, and they move on.
Yeah. What about does it ever occur where the LCB uses SPE to help enforce? Or it seems like the LCB is controlling a lot of this. Is there a point where that comes in? Is that something that happens?
It's possible. I'm not familiar with any enforcement action that's come from LCB specifically. That doesn't mean it hasn't, but I'm not familiar with any. The majority of marijuana cases that come to my attention, at least, are because there's a building on fire somewhere, firefighters go in and they find an illegal lot and call us. Those are most of the things that come across my desk are that, rather than a patient with too many plants or too much marijuana, things like that.
Because you're working in social media for the police department, and you said that they're really focusing on enforcing the law, so you mentioned juvenile consumption. Do you foresee the police department saturating social media to find people? Is that something that you've seen already?
I get accused of spamming, so I try not to saturate social media.
Maybe saturate is the wrong word. Do you see people creating accounts, like I know there are marijuana-friendly networks on social media. Do you see people creating accounts who work for the authorities, going and befriending people, and maybe someone posts a selfie in their car with like a blunt or something,
We get CC'd on stuff like that all the time, and there have been maybe 1 or 2 cases where it was something like that, and it had to be pretty significant, because honestly, when somebody sends a picture to us, tweets a picture at us, I have no idea where they are, where the picture came from, and like there's 15 layers of and so, we're not, I don't think we're taking pictures of people, smoking on social media and building a case file on them as a result of that. Another thing is, from a picture, you don't know if the car's in motion, you don't know where they are, if they're in the city limits. There's a lot of things that would make that difficult to sort of extrapolate from and how someone is and build a case from. So as far as I know, nobody's keeping a dossier of selfies. That's a good question.
I want to elaborate on that.
Can you stand up, please?
I'd like to elaborate on that. They might not be keeping a file yet, but is
picture led to
Yeah,
someone
like if they
being-
check my Facebook and they go, wow, she, you know, smoking, maybe smoking in a car, it looks like, or standing in a field of cannabis plants, is that somehow going to be related where this can be used against them, especially if it's someone under 18?
I mean, unless, like I get the hypothetical here, I mean, unless there was a reason to investigate someone in the first place, there wouldn't be like any sort of associated anything like that. I mean, if somebody gets into a car wreck and, you know, one of our drug recognition experts comes out, finds somebody's intoxicated, I mean, they can check social media as part of that specific investigation, but we don't go trolling the web to find pictures of people with marijuana and then, like, if they get in trouble later on, link that back.
Right, but it still is something that they can use to connect. So if in fact there was an accident and then they went and researched that,
Right.
this is something now with potential files, so if something happened again. You know, it's just interesting how the social media is used. So I just wanted to elaborate on that because there are trolls. Everyone knows there's trolls in many of the sites
Right.
for different reasons. So it's interesting with
Yeah.
all the new legalization happening, with the recreational, with the medical, with, you know, there's all sorts of stuff happening here. Is this, you know, potentially an issue for someone, whether they own a business, they own a rec shop, they own a medical, whatever that may be. You know, so it's just, you know, I wanted to elaborate because I thought it was a really great question.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I think sort of more generally, we're all, like, we live in an age where, oh, wow, social media can really, like, it lives on the internet forever, which is terrifying because I work on the internet. And so, yeah, what you're saying, you know, is a tweet that I posted of that. I mean, the searches on social media, from what I understand, the only times I've ever seen pictures from Twitter or YouTube or Facebook come up are, you know, on pretty high profile, like homicide cases, shooting cases, things like that. I think, you know, just like with any, I mean, you know, detectives can get, you know, warrants for bank records if they're investigating a fraud case, things like that. So I think it really kind of depends on the circumstance. I mean, you can always find out, you don't have to do a public disclosure request, and our state has some pretty broad and expansive laws that allow you to get quite a bit. So if there's, you know, anything in particular, you could send a request for, you know, any files, records, whatever associated with yourself. I mean, you may get a bunch of parking tickets back, but yeah, that's certainly one way you could go about that if that's a concern.
So consider the following scenario. Somebody flies into Seattle on vacation. They come, you know, gosh, I'm in the land of legal recreational marijuana. They go into a rec store and they make a purchase, and then they start to open that up and they get told, no, you can't do that here. And so then they ask the question, well, where can I use it?
I'm so glad you asked that question. You know, we actually, primarily the city law department did the heavy lift on it, but we were connected with them a little bit on it. There actually was a brochure, it was the Seattle Hotel Association that the city put together and provided to them to basically answer that exact question for tourists. Because, hey, it's a tourism business now, and so now they know, you know, what they can do. I don't remember if there was literature about, I don't think we like gave, you know, collated Yelp reviews or anything like that at the shops, but yeah, but that's definitely, I mean, I think that I've heard from officers that people ask them, they'll be driving around, so, hey, where's, and they'll provide directions sometimes.
But I think the question was in terms of, if you're from out of town, if you come to Seattle as a destination,
right,
and you make a purchase, where can I go to legally consume?
And I know that that's a thing the city's working on. I guess befriend someone who will let you use their house.
Yeah.
But yeah, open use is definitely, that's still a puzzle piece that they're working to, you know, fit into place. I know that there are some efforts underway to sort that out, and that's, I think, a thing that's been coming up as long as I've been with the department.
So since I'm on a roll of having asked a great
Oh, you had one question, sir. Sit down.
So, you know, along with that, it seems like this is an opportunity to collaborate with the police. If you've got brochures, we can have those brochures,
yeah,
et cetera, and like that. Do you
you know, that's something, I want to make sure that we have somebody who's accessible for these kinds of things, because, yeah, some of this, you know, I mean, these are great questions, and some of them are, you know, just well beyond things that I even thought about, but make a lot of sense to wonder about. So let me, I'll connect with you guys and find out, you know, who our best point of contact is. Again, you know, I know David Mendoza is sort of our city expert on a lot of this, but, you know, in terms of the department, we've got some folks too who are really up to speed on a lot of this and do, you know, are up to the minute on the law, know what's coming down, you know, later on, and all that stuff, and I want to make sure that their sort of knowledge base is accessible too.
I was wondering, off the top of your head, do you have any statistics on the DUIs and?
I don't. I know State Patrol has put out numbers which then get debated. I'm not sure we've released any. I know, you know, I see it pop up in reports from time to time. I would still say that a significant number of the reports I see are attributed to alcohol. But I couldn't tell you exactly how many we've seen and, you know, where that registers in terms of trend.
So then they're pretty low, you would say?
I would say I wouldn't be able to guess on the trend. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's one of those things where you know, they can check somebody if they have, you know, alcohol and, you know, THC in their system.
Are they doing that regularly?
I don't know that it's regularly. You know, I know our traffic unit does a lot of our DUI emphasis work, but again, I think that the majority is still alcohol.
What is it?
I was just going to ask, do you have outreach with other police departments, whether that's in-state or out-of-state? I know a lot of business coalitions or political delegations come through Washington. Are you talking to other police departments? And if so, what's the message? Is it working? Was it worth it? Is it a challenge? Do you have a point of view on that?
Yeah, I mean, we get calls a lot about this because we were out there pretty quick in a big way right off the bat. And I mean, so the first contact we got from other police departments, I got an angry email from a chief of a small jurisdiction, which will remain nameless. You know, how dare I talk to people like adults after, you know.
Eastern Washington.
So yeah, we you know, as this.
And are you saying to others? So if I'm coming from, I'm in Nevada, right, and everybody knows that's going to go legal soon, right? And so, well, it's going to be. And so, are you hearing from police or sheriff's departments there about? So how should we roll this out? Should we start ordering Doritos for the strip? That kind of thing?
That's already been done. You know, typically when we get that call, it's I think Portland was the first agency